Welcome everyone to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease until her passing. In her memory, we started TogetherForSharon.com to bring awareness and advocate toward a cure for all those still battling Parkinson today and their families, because no one is ever alone in this fight for a cure. Today's guest is someone I'm not just inspired by, but the way he's been able to take something he will tell you shockingly he thought would be kind of quiet, but turning it into something that's known now worldwide and I think brings really important media attention, which we try to strive for every day. Because the more individuals we meet, the more people you all share this with, and the more you support my incredible guest Harvey, the closer I think we'll be to a cure. So, welcome Harvey to the show.
George, thank you for having me. It is great to be here with you today.
I think you're not only a celebrity but a legend because the things you've been able to accomplish really shows resilience, and that's what keeps me going. There's some days where, I mean, even now I don't lie, I have a back brace on as we sit here, and it's not always easy to sit a lot, but I forget the pain and don't care because all I do want is a cure for you, in memory of my mother and all those we've unfortunately who lost their battle, but also to inspire, which I feel you do every day so many people out there in the world that might feel alone.
Those are very kind things for you to say. I've worked with my therapist a lot over the years about resilience. I used to be a hypochondriac when I never imagined that anything like Parkinson's was on the horizon. And I learned that the thing that gets you is never the thing you're worried about. So it's pointless to waste energy worrying, and you just need every day to do the best with what you've got. No matter how healthy you are, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Nothing is guaranteed to any of us.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we could start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, things started off uninteresting enough for me. I'm a lawyer. I was educated at Georgetown University where I got my JD. I practiced with a boutique international law firm. And in 2019, at age 49, I was, to my great shock, diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's. I had no family history, and I didn't know very much about the disease. And it was very terrifying initially.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And maybe we could start here is, what brought you to want to, be a public figure, even though you probably don't think or want to be, because there's a lot of individuals. Unfortunately, my mother had Parkinson's 15 years, and there's different types of people. Some like to be private, some public, like Mr. Michael J. Fox, one of my heroes. He didn't have to become public or do all the things he does even today. We send our love always to him and the whole foundation, but it takes something. I was wondering what's that something, that pushes someone to realize that they need to do a little more and almost become a face across the nation of hope. No pressure, by the way.
Well, I didn't set out to become what you call a public figure. Um, my goal when I went on Jeopardy, after the initial shock of the diagnosis wore off, I'm fortunate enough to have a friend in Canada whose father had had Parkinson's for many years, and she is a reasonable candidate for my friend, that is, for the smartest person I know. And she had done a ton of research and advised me on beyond assembling the excellent care team that I had done, including not just neurologists, but a physical therapist. And I already had a really good regular therapist, but I made dietary and lifestyle changes to try to slow the progression of the disease. And when things had stabilized, I went back to the core passions that define me. I didn't want the disease to define me, but rather to be something that I'm living with and finding workarounds to keep doing things that bring joy into my life, which becomes even more important when you're living with Parkinson's, obviously. And one of my passions has always been trivia. I dislike the term trivia because it implies that things are trivial. I prefer to think of it as being curious and wanting to learn as much as I can about the world. And as part of that, I like testing myself to see how much I know. And I've been trying for years to get onto Jeopardy. And when I finally made it on, I thought, hey, I have Parkinson's and I'm on Jeopardy. Maybe the producers can let the Michael J. Fox Foundation know and they can tell a few people and it'll give hope and inspiration to some people with Parkinson's. I never imagined that it would get the kind of attention that it did. I thought that the episode would mainly be viewed and talked about by people in the hardcore viewer and fan community. And to my pleasant surprise, the show's social media team on the day of the broadcast of my first episode, they shared clips from my interview with host Ken Jennings from that first episode, during which I talked about the fact that I had Parkinson's. And that got a lot of traction. That shows social media has a lot of reach. And I played pretty well in my first game, which was not a given going in. I didn't know how the Parkinson's was going to affect things like buzzing in on the signaling device, which, as you may have heard, it has an outsized importance in winning a lot of games. But the first game went as well as I could have hoped. And I still didn't expect the media frenzy that followed.
Mhm.
But I looked at it as an opportunity to have a platform to extend the contribution I could make to public awareness and to helping people with Parkinson's to make it go beyond just the airing of my episodes and to actually make a difference. And in the aftermath of my show's airing, I was contacted by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I'm very fortunate that I've started collaborating with them on various projects. And so I'm going to contribute as much of my time and input as I can going forward. The Michael J. Fox Foundation really is a colossus in terms of the fundraising they do, which I'm now going to be helping with, and being able to fund cutting edge research. And I've always liked how they use taglines like, our goal is to put ourselves out of business. And I'm
Mhm.
probably paraphrasing a little, but to be able to help them with their mission, it really feels like using the powers that I've been given for good.
Yeah, I feel you are, and I wanted to also thank you, even though how celebrity you are, how much time you might not have due to all the calls that have come to give some time to us today. Just sharing a few of the, I've written to people and also CNN and also Entertainment Weekly, and they all covered it, which I think was amazing. And they just never really responded to me. So I think any way we can continue to advocate like you have really means so much to so many, including me. I'm still grieving the loss of my mother. It doesn't really end after someone you love passed, especially when they had Parkinson's, as I feel she lost many years alive and afterwards. She was very young when she passed, but through you and inspiring me and families, caregivers, and those with Parkinson's, it really, I think, changes the world for the better. Before we kind of move to some other fun questions, I was wondering, Parkinson's is a challenge, but just getting on a show like this is a even bigger, like possibly challenge. But I grew up as a child putting it on. I never could answer any of the questions, even with several degrees. And then you were on just rocking it and doing incredible. And what's it like to prepare for something like that? I'm sure they'll ask you back in the future for like the celebrity version, but what's it like to prepare? What's it like with the lights and cameras? And it must be something if you're private that might have been a struggle even through the process. I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Before I get to the how I prepared, which went way beyond how most contestants prepared, even before I had Parkinson's. Um, I wouldn't want to be on Celebrity Jeopardy where the questions are really dumbed down, you could say. I did really well on my first episode of regular Jeopardy. There's a lot of what a probability theorist would call variance in the game. And I had the bad luck of having two really strong opponents in my second game. And I could have beaten them if ran a Monte Carlo simulation 100,000 times. The three players, we probably each would have won about a third. But in the only one that actually happened, I lost the game. And other people have had easier opponents, not in terms of, I'm not disparaging the players, but just in terms of the actual numbers they put up and what the players were competing against. But there's a postseason tournament called Champions Wildcard for players who won at least one game but didn't qualify for the TOC. And I'm hoping that I will be invited to that. But
Thanks.
that's up to the producers.
If you need an army of Parkinson's community to help write a campaign to have them help you get on, I'm sure we would all be honored to help any way we can too. Because even though you're giving back, I think that everyone also out there, whether with Parkinson's or not, is really supportive of the story and journey. Can you remember the toughest question they asked versus the easiest one?
Well, the toughest question for someone is always going to be a function of both their knowledge base and sometimes you know something, but in 5 seconds you
Right.
just can't pull it from your memory banks. I will say that I was not at all nervous about being on stage on TV. Um, I sing karaoke around the world, so I'm used to performing in front of potentially hostile audiences, and that doesn't faze me. Um, I want to get back to your previous question.
Please.
A lot of people, they don't start preparing until they get the call to be on the show. But in my view, that's a mistake because you can't cram for a general knowledge show where there's so many different categories and so many things that can come up within those categories. And over the years, I just learned as much as I could through various means, from reading books to going to museums. I learned a lot from my travels, and I did a lot of flashcarding. And I focused on the subjects that are most likely historically to come up in Final Jeopardies or Daily Doubles, which have outsized importance in winning games. One thing that I didn't really study, which I hadn't been good at, was world flags, which was the subject of my Final Jeopardy in my first game. There had been, I think, something like 32 world flags Final Jeopardies in the over 40 season history of the current incarnation of the show. So it didn't seem like a good allocation of resources to spend a lot of time on it. But I got a world flags question, and I still wagered a lot on Final Jeopardy. You don't know just from the from the category, how difficult the clue is going to be. Sometimes it will only have a very tangential relation to the category. And I was betting on myself. And if I got it right, I would have had $50,000. But I missed it. But I have no regrets about going for it.
Well, I really appreciate you like kind of walking us through the moments and the feeling. And I feel like I think the world was really with you that day, and now in your advocacy, even beyond. Wanted to ask a few more questions as we wrap up, and I always joke and say after, since you're used to it, but after the lights and camera paparazzi leave the show today, we still have work to be done, and until that day is a cure at everybody's doorsteps around the world, we have to continue this and through your incredible work and that day, I think it's going to shine on for future individuals unfortunately diagnosed and looks helps them look up to someone to realize again that you can still accomplish anything. I remember studying for the bar. I don't know if Jeopardy studying was worse than the bar exam, but it's definitely you sit in that room by yourself, keep studying, saying you want to give up, and you can't. You have to keep fighting, and it's kind of similar to this awareness and advocacy. I was wondering, I mean, this might already have been it, but is there one moment or most memorable moment that stands out through most of the work you've done so far with advocacy? I know, unfortunately, we missed each other, but we were both at the Unity Walk. Was that one of the most memorable, or is there a different one? You,
Well, I've only really just started
Mhm.
talking to the different people from the different sides of the foundation, and I'm basically onboarding to different sides of what they do. For example, I'm on the committee for an event called Epicure, which is held at a venue in New York City's Chelsea Piers. It's going to be September 18th this year. And in addition to bringing in great food from restaurants in the city, there are things like a silent auction with unique items contributed by businesses. And the vibe of the event apparently is super fun. And it's, I think it's a great way to fundraise using events like that where people aren't just helping those of us with Parkinson's, they're getting an experience. Um, so they're getting something good for themselves while also helping the Parkinson's community.
Yeah, I really
And
appreciate. Yeah, that's it. I mean, those are the words again that inspires me to want to keep doing this. I was wondering if someone unfortunately was just diagnosed with Parkinson's listening today, what words of encouragement or advice could you give them?
well, the first thing I would say is completely understandable and normal to freak out at first. But the diagnosis does not mean that your life as you know it has suddenly fallen off a cliff. Now, some of the things you may like to do may be a little more difficult. You may have to really persevere. There are times when I have to push through, like my primary physical symptom is something called dystonia, where I'll be walking and my legs will cramp up, and I might be traveling thousands of miles from home, and I'm in the airport trying to get to the gate. And the dystonia is worse when I'm tired, which can happen when you're traveling. And if I'm carrying heavy items like hand luggage. And I've had instances where the dystonia flared up and I had to hustle to try to get one of those, I don't know what they're called, but those wheeled vehicles that drive you to the gate. And there was one time where the guy said, I can't do it because you're on British Airways and this is for Turkish Airlines. And I'm like, I have Parkinson's. Those are the kinds of things that I have to just really steel myself to get through. But
Hopefully,
it's very rewarding, and I appreciate more when I am able to follow through and do the things that I enjoy so much. And one thing that's very important in the early going, which my original treating neurologist, shockingly to me in retrospect, never suggested at the meeting where he diagnosed me, is physical therapy. I had to, on my own, think maybe I need physical therapy and seek out what turned out to be an excellent PT who was specifically trained in helping Parkinson's patients.
yeah, as you're just discussing how important, sports and exercise is, we actually just published a book on it. But physical therapy, although not considered sport, is also one of the leading areas to help individuals not just get back to their life, but also to bring hope. My mother's main thing when she had physical therapy was she wanted to get better for her granddaughter to be at the wedding. Unfortunately, it progressed too much, but I always remember how important, physical therapy was. Who is your hero and inspiration?
Well, I have to say it was Michael J. Fox. I especially admired how he was a working actor for about 30 years after his diagnosis. And I liked the way that his Parkinson's was written into his appearance on the TV show Designated Survivor. Um, and he was one of the people I looked up to. And there's other people that I've recently been learning about, like Jimmy Choi, who's run all those marathons. And has he done any ultra marathons? I think I heard that maybe he has.
Mhm. I'm not sure. Maybe the Fox Ninja. That's the famous thing on the TV station, the Ninja Show.
Yeah, that's impressive as well, but just what he's accomplished in terms of physical stamina activities for someone with Parkinson's. I'm awed by that. And going back to your earlier point, I would also tell someone who was newly diagnosed that, like you said, physical exercise is very important, not just for the motor symptoms, but in staving off cognitive decline and staying sharp mentally.
Yeah, I agree, and I thank you for that. And on a lighter note, if you were asked to write a script to a movie about your life story, what would you call it, and what actor would play your role? And I have a feeling Jeopardy might be involved.
That's a really tough
And
question because the things that I've done have been so eclectic.
we could always
Um,
call it to be continued. That's what the name of the.
yeah, like
What to?
that's what they have those focus groups for. But I think it would be one of those things that had a subtitle, the Harvey Silikovitz story.
I like that. How about an actor? What actor would play your role?
The funny thing is, people used to tell me that I looked like Michael J. Fox when I was younger.
That's funny. We'll have to do another
And
show and we'll say you're Michael J. Mr. Fox. Although we welcome him on the show, the three of us can have a show together. That would be fun.
um, maybe someone like Seth Green.
That's a good one.
But when I was growing up watching Family Ties,
Mm.
I wanted to be Michael J. Fox. And sometimes I feel like that came true in a horrible monkey's paw kind of way. Like, I didn't mean it in this sense.
Yeah. I had the same. I had the honor to meet him a few times, but the first time was tough because it was, it's like the two people on your shoulder. One is like, I'm in heaven, I'm meeting a hero, but the other one was more bringing me back to when my mother was struggling, and I saw that in him a few years ago, and that part was heartbreaking. So it was definitely, you get all the different types of emotion. But not only do I want to thank you for your time today, but thanks for your friendship and all you do. Really inspires me to keep fighting towards a cure, and I won't stop till it's at everybody's doorsteps around the world. But as we wrap up, because I never like to say as we end, because I feel like this needs to be continued, like the movie might be called, because until there's a cure, we have a lot of work to do. But if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would those be?
Well, I think that goes back to, even though you have Parkinson's, for most people, I realize that every patient is different, like with every other disease. But for most people, just because you have Parkinson's doesn't mean that in most respects you aren't the same person you were yesterday. And focus on what's important to you and getting the most out of your life, which I think is sound advice for anybody. And to an extent, a lot of the symptoms of Parkinson's are just accelerated versions of what everyone goes through in the aging process. And so it's more of a carpe diem attitude, not in a reckless kind of way, but in an every moment is precious way, and life is a great gift. And it's even more important when you have a chronic illness like Parkinson's to keep up with the things that you're passionate about, because every time you're feeling the endorphins from one of those activities is a moment when you're not worrying about your prognosis for the future.
I really appreciate your words, your kindness, and your time. I have a little message for you, Harvey, and everyone listening. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Harvey and all his incredible advocacy with Michael J. Fox Foundation and on his own, I feel together we'll all advocate with one another, but also that our voices are so much stronger together. And I don't want to end the show with, to end I like to end it with or conclude it with them just getting started because even though some days are tough for everyone out there listening to for us, we kind of are inspired. And I know even on the day that I discovered your journey, it really did push me to, not realize I can't stop. The show has to go on. We still have work to be done, but together again, I feel we're going to reach more people. And even if we just reach one today, I feel that you've together, I hope we've changed their life for better. And also, really, that nothing can stop any of us. We have to be a family in this fight. And I wanted to thank you again, Harvey, for your time. And really, this has been an honor and a pleasure. And I'm so excited, not just to watch your future advocacy, but always support you and be a part of it in any way we can.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate all the advocacy work that you do. We were talking before the show about how your advocacy can't bring your mom back, unfortunately, and my advocacy probably won't lead to a cure that will come in time to help me. But the more we do now, the more we can help the scientists who are working towards a cure and spare as many people as possible in future generations from this ravaging disease.
I agree. And again, so grateful for those words. And they will live on, resonate with so many today and even beyond. And we all need to get that food event that you're promoting in South Florida too. So we're always have a home for you here when everyone there and then the foundation need to get a division here in South Florida because I would love to go to that event, but it's tough to get back to New York all the time. Although I hope to see you definitely soon at some event and then be able to get a photo together, but a big hug. So until then, I'm sending a virtual hug to everyone and thanking you all again. Please support Harvey and the Michael J. Fox Foundation. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. I'll share the links as well. What a story, what a journey. But again, I feel it's just getting started like I am. Thanks to everyone for listening. Please share this. Please support Harvey and all his advocacy. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon and George. Please stay tuned. We have a lot of work to be done, and I'll be right there by your side, fighting and advocating until there's a cure. Thanks, Harvey, and thanks, everyone. We love you. Thanks.
Thank you, George.